How is everybody doing today? Got my one and only cup of coffee for today. I'm trying to cut back on caffeine. Good luck with that. But I have been doing 1 cup a day. Discipline. All right. It is a never ending battle. Discipline. All right. See you guys piling in. Facebook is live. YouTube is live. TikTok is live. All right. Okay. So today we were talking about what it's like living here, what it's like leaving the United States, living at the beach in Kenya, what are Kenyans like, all of that good stuff. I don't know why this camera is always fuzzy. I guess that's a little bit better. So that's what we're getting into today. All questions are open. As you guys know, I don't think any questions are dumb because I always forget what the basic questions are. It's been 20 years. So you have a question that seems obvious, or by the tone of my voice, you think I'll think it's obvious, just ask it. All right. So if you guys are new here, you don't know me, my name is John Debolat. If you're French, my name is Jean Debolet. And I have been coming back and forth to the continent of Africa for about 15 years. Did a whole bunch of due diligence on which countries were the best for me and my business activities, and found out that there was like it wasn't even close. Kenya was definitely number one for the things that I wanted to do, and no other country on the continent, be it North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, no other country on the continent was even close. Which is probably why the UN is based out of Kenya when it comes to the African continent. So, ended up doing a bunch of due diligence out here, coming out here multiple times, living out here in multiple different regions, and then finally settling here and going through the immigration process here for dual citizenship and to add another passport to my passport portfolio. One of the things that became super apparent to me, which is why I do this, is that there were not a lot of professionals that were focused on members of the diaspora and bringing them here legally and safely. And so we started down that path. We acquired a law firm. We acquired a architectural firm and a general contractor, and are vertically integrated in those 3 areas. So I permanently live in Diani Beach, Kenya. My wife is here. My child is here. We build houses here. And so this is where I live permanently. And I bring a lot of other families here annually. So a lot of times people engage with Kenya and they're, talking about Nairobi because it's the capital, and it's all they know. But a lot of folks don't like the hustle and bustle of the capital. The capital is like on par, with a New York City type of situation, right? It's very large. It's very busy. It's very hustle bustle, and a lot of people are trying to get away from the hustle bustle and relax a little bit more and not have that kind of speed situation that looks like rudeness. The same thing in New York, right? Like people might think like New Yorkers are rude, but they're just busy, right? So a lot of people are trying to get away from that, and so they would like to expand outside of the borders of Nairobi, but don't necessarily know where to go. What was your take on Ghana? Not enough infrastructure. Nice place, nice people, all of that jazz. But there was nothing set up. Like even when they did their year of return, they didn't actually have anything set up to manage the year of return. So you kind of get there and there's nothing. So that is disappointing, unfortunately. There is a similar situation that is coming to Kenya. It is spearheaded by Traverse Culture, which is another relocation service that is completely legit. As far as Americans that are assisting with relocation in Kenya, she's the only other legit relocation service, and it's called the Journey Back to Eden, and it's what the year of return should have been. So it's not just, hey, come out here, and when you get here there's no support for you. It's There are all these support services. They're actually going on a government tour. So the government of Kenya is teaming up with Traverse Culture, and they're actually going to be like going to Atlanta. I think they're going to Atlanta, DC, and maybe Houston, but they're going to go to a bunch of US cities, and actually do like a US city tour and break down all the services that are available and like the help that's actually available. So you don't just show up and there's nothing and you just like figure it out in a foreign country where you don't know the laws, right? So that is coming. That's super cool. That's launching in a couple of weeks as 2026 approaches. So keep your eyes open on that if you are looking to attend one of those tours. Isn't that my competitor? Not really. I mean, I guess when you're new in business, you think that other people doing similar things to you are your competitors, but they're not. You know what I mean? You're you, they're them. They have their target client, you have your target client, and that's it. And so I don't, as long as they're legitimate, I don't need to like compete with them. So me and the owner of Traverse Culture's name is Kia. We're super cool. We do similar things, but we definitely have different clients. Right. So we have our own target clients and like we'll help each other out. Like if she needs something done that her team can't handle, she'll call my team and they'll do it for her. If I need something done that my team can't handle, we'll call her. There's just really no reason for us to compete. Honestly, it's like a young business thing, right? The longer you've been in business, you realize that the people that essentially vibe with your business and your brand voice and your brand strategy only vibe with your business and your brand choice and your brand strategy, which is why it's actually a little bit disappointing when those of us who should be working together are working against each other. But at the same time, there are a lot of people doing illegal stuff. So that's why I'm very quick to say she's the only other legitimate relocation specialist in Kenya. That's an American. There are Germans and all of that stuff that are servicing their people, but as far as an American is concerned, or I guess I should even go so far as to say a Black American is concerned, she's the only other legitimate relocation specialist. So buyer beware. But yeah, no, it's just a mindset thing. You know what I mean? You just haven't been in business long enough. I'm assuming, you know what I mean? But it's just a mindset thing. No one can actually take your customers. The customers that gravitate to you because of what your brand is about, because of what your messaging is about, because they with you, right? No one can actually take them. You can lose them, but no one can actually take them, right? So, like the people that go to her would not be interested in me, right? Because she has a much more hold your hand, walk you through everything kind of vibe, right? We do more advanced things with law, right? So we do more advanced things with like trust funds. We do things that like savvy investors are really attracted to. We do things with bond laddering so that when people move over here, they don't have to work another day in their life, right? So the people that we attract don't need hand holding, and in fact, they're offended by it, right? Because they're competent enough that they can get things done. They just need the specialist to take care of the specialist areas for them, and then they're off to the races, right? So we have two different, target clients. And sometimes it's funny because sometimes like it'll be a husband and wife, and maybe the husband is attracted to the hand holding style of Traverse culture, and maybe the wife is like a boss business lady, and she's attracted to the specialist style of Diaspora Freedom Initiative. So so in those situations it is funny, but yeah, we have completely different targets. How's it going, Sheba? How are you? What's going on, Henrock? Good to see you. Let's see, Bob Wire. How's it going? All right. Yeah, no, I would say refine your brand voice and your brand strategy, and that should go away. Unless you're like hyper fixated on competition that doesn't exist, you're only competing against yourself. Until you figure that out, business is not going to go very well for you. Right, right. No, no, it's a great comment. I mean, there's no right and wrong mindset either. Just your mindset isn't aligned with winning in business at the moment, but that doesn't make it wrong. Just the outcome may not be what you want it to be. Right. Yeah, just work on it. Just put it out. You'll be all right. It takes a while. All this stuff takes a while. Hey, hey, what's going on, Texas? How's it going? All good? I just got off a call with somebody from Dallas, Fort Worth. And that's how they kept saying it. I'm from the Dallas, Fort Worth area. Which one, Fort Worth or Dallas? But good to see you. Good to see you. All right. So, sorry, I got sidetracked there with the business questions, will always sidetrack me. All right. So, what is it like? You got friends in DFW? So, what is it like to live out here? Honestly, it's incredibly freeing. Right. So we were talking about like Nairobi a little while ago. Nairobi's super cool, right? Super, super cool. If you like big cities, if you're enamored with big cities, if you're enamored with super convenience, right? Nairobi got all of that, right? So if you want food delivered at 3 a.m., from an app, Nairobi is your place, right? If you want to go to a different rooftop bar every week for all 52 weeks of the year, Nairobi is your place, right? If that's, you young kids, you want to go, have the nightlife and party and all of that stuff, go do it. Enjoy yourselves. But if you're like, look, I'm tired. I'm trying to relax. I'm trying to live my life. I'm trying to be free. I'm trying to not worry about nothing. I'm not trying to worry about money. I'm not trying to worry about crime. I'm not trying to worry about nothing. That's when people start focusing outside of Nairobi with us, and they start looking into options like bond laddering so that they have passive income for a decade or two, where they don't have to worry about money, right? So our primary clients, are something like me. They typically are not necessarily looking for Nairobi. They're looking for, a secondary city, where they can have everything they need. They still want, world class medical and all of that stuff, but they just don't want the hustle and bustle of essentially a New York style city. I just heard from friends in Zimbabwe about the business changes. Yeah, it's sad, 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 sad. Yeah, but it was predictable. Like in our due diligence, we knew that that was not even an option. Also, Tanzania is the same thing for us. It wasn't even an option. We don't need any virtual assistants at the moment, but you can send the portfolio. You never know when we're going to need one, but we have all the hires that we need at the moment as far as virtual assistants are concerned. All right. So in Kenya, you can have those two different experiences, right? Nairobi's probably more expensive, but it's primarily because of convenience, right? You can probably get by without it being more expensive, but that would be giving up some of the conveniences, so forth. So if you're essentially door dashing, right? It's called Glovo out here, or or Uber Eats. They do have Uber Eats. If you're doing that for every meal, and you know what I mean, and it's reservations every night and all of that type of stuff, then yeah, it would be expensive. So if you look at, actually, that's a really good one. If you've seen like Khalees's take, since she's been out here, she has a take on the cost of living out here, where she says in her video that it's way more expensive, right? And so for her, I'm sure it is, because she was a millionaire before she got here. So she's maintaining a lifestyle, right, that she had elsewhere. And so to maintain that lifestyle, I'm sure it is more expensive. But excuse me, for 100% of my clients, it's way less expensive. Sometimes as much as 80% less expensive, right? So significantly less expensive. So it definitely depends on the lifestyle you're looking for and where you're living it. Because remember, most of my clients are not attracted to the cities. Some of them will go there first, right? Like if you're following on YouTube, there's a video on YouTube about one of our relocation clients named Tim. I don't know if it says it in that video, but Tim went to Nairobi first, right? So we brought him to the beach. He was like, let me go check out Nairobi. Went to Nairobi, was looking to buy stuff in Nairobi, even like lost a deposit, you know, trying to buy a place. And then when we looked at the actual covenants in the title deeds and all of that at that place, it actually wasn't what he wanted. And then he came back and built a house at the beach, right? So most of our folks are not living in Nairobi, and so they're not engaging in the same things that like Khalees was talking about. But yeah, you can actually go anywhere and make it more expensive than where you came from, right? So it just depends on what you're doing. Yeah, I saw some of her videos. She is cool, but she's living a rock star level. Yeah. It's true. Yeah. And that's her normal, right? It's the same thing with me. When I tell you guys, like, just ask your questions, because I've been doing this for 20 years. And the basic question doesn't even occur to me anymore, right? My first business was a martial arts business, right? And when I became, past black belt, like master level martial artist, I had no concept of what a white belt was even thinking, right? I just couldn't remember. And so it actually helped me to become a teacher, because then I was engaging with white belts all the time, and I started understanding exactly what it is they were thinking and exactly how it was that they were, going through the process of learning these martial arts, right? And so it's the same thing for this. I've been doing this for so long that what's obvious to me is like the most complicated thing in the world to many of you. So if you have a question, just ask it. No matter how silly it might sound, there's probably 100 other people that want to ask the same question. One of the things, I can't tell this on YouTube or Facebook, but on TikTok, I can actually see who's watching, who hasn't come in the room. So don't think just because it says there's 10 people in here that there's only 10, because I can see another 10 people watching, like on the, I guess your FYP or whatever, it'll show you, right? As the host, how many people are out there watching. So, there's probably plenty of people thinking that same question. And so just ask it. I think that's like a superpower too. If you can remain connected to like a novice as a business owner, I swear that's a superpower. Like if I could anticipate novice questions and just answer them, yeah, that's definitely a marketing superpower. I wish I had. I don't. So ask your questions. What was that mobile internet interface were talking about yesterday. Ooh, is it M-Pesa? Mobile internet interface. Ooh, geez, I'm not sure. Is it mobile money interface or is it just a mobile internet? Oh, are you talking about the VPN interface? Well, let me know. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Give me a little bit of clarity on it. If you're talking about the router, the VPN router, yeah, that hold on. Let me see if I can just get that for you real quick. Sorry, Facebook guys. Give me 1 second. It is called it's called an Air Cove. AIRCOVE. It's called Air Cove. All right. So if you get you know, I don't get paid for mentioning it, unfortunately, but I use it, so that's why I'm mentioning the Air Cove router. I don't know if any other routers that do the same thing, but the Air Cove router, I guess, because it's not Air Cove VPN, it's Express VPN. But Express VPN doesn't work as well without the Air Cove router. I think the protocols are different. So like if you have an ExpressVPN account, right, and then you try to, I don't know, log into your ExpressVPN on your laptop and then go to Netflix. Netflix will be like, you're not in America, right? Like VPN or no VPN, it'll see you. But if you have the Air Cove, I guess because it's their hardware talking to their hardware, Netflix doesn't see you, right? It just whatever. So if you have that specific router, the VPN seems to work better everywhere. Like even in China, it works, which is crazy because not much works in China. Angola, I have no idea. Sorry. I personally, I stay away from Musk companies. However, I don't use it, so I don't know. I use fiber optic. I use local fiber optic internet here, so I have no idea what Starlink costs. What's it like getting around? Super easy, super easy. I mean, so I live at the beach, but beyond living at the beach, I also live in a tourist area, right? So that's helpful as well. Why do I? Oh, so that's helpful as well. And then, so there's all kinds of transportation because tourist area, and I have a car. So I mean, I was using a mobile internet box while I was in Zambia, and my U.S. phone worked too. Yeah, typically that will work everywhere. Like even in China, if you have like a roaming service on your, or even if you don't, but it can be expensive if you don't. But if you bring your U.S. phone, it'll work, which is fine for tourists, right? But if you're going to move there, then you're just throwing away money. Like even if it's the cheapest U.S. phone plan, it's 3, 4 times more expensive than a local phone plan. Lucy V, yes, I live in Deani Beach. Hey Sharon, can you bring me my rings? I was cleaning them. They're on my desk in the middle room. Thank you. I'm sitting here and I'm like, why do my hands feel so different? My ring isn't on and my family ring isn't on. I was cleaning them a little bit earlier. I'm like, what's different? Thank you. Outstanding. Thank you very much. Yes, yes, yes. We talk about the family constitutions and those family traditions, and the wedding ring is actually one of our family traditions, right? So men in our family have a stone in their wedding ring. It doesn't look like what a woman's stone would look like, right? But there's a connection to an area called Meru in our lineage. It's a married in connection, right? I'm not Meru myself, but the gemstone in the wedding ring is an aquamarine. Meru's in Kenya, right? So aquamarine is actually mined in Meru. So the stone comes from the place that my wife comes from, right? And so that's a tradition in our family. So my son, whoever he decides to marry, there'll be a stone in his wedding ring from the place his wife comes from. I remember you had a family crest too. Yeah, this one, this is the family crest. And the crest is a legitimate crest. It's not like one of those things where you look up a name in a book. You know, it's a legitimate crest that was issued by the College of Arms of the Republic of Kenya. Apart from Kenya, have you visited other African countries and tried business? Yes. We did due diligence in 34 other African countries. So not all 54 of them, but we've been to 34 other African countries, 35 in total, including Kenya. And we have clients that do business in other African countries as well. So we've attempted to do business in a great deal of African countries, not with a great deal of success. The food. So the food is international. For me, right? If I like, I used to live in a place called Kisi. In Kisi, it was less international because Kisi was not a tourist area like the area I live in now, right? But now I live in Deani Beach, so I can get Kenyan food, American food, French food, German food, so on and so forth. Italian, there's a lot of Italian. What made Kenya stand out to you? Okay, so there are objective metrics. I've never been one to make emotional decisions, right? There's just no profit in it. There are objective metrics that exist that people can get their hands on for free and do actual real due diligence. Unfortunately, way too many people make decisions based off of vibes, and then they end up in Zimbabwe situations and Tanzania situations where the government changes the law and now they're screwed because they can't even feed themselves anymore. So there's that. When it came to Kenya, especially at the time of the due diligence, Kenya's ease of doing business score was the highest in all of Africa. I think they're maybe number 5 now, but it was number 1 in all of Africa, and it was like above many European countries like Luxembourg. It was higher than Luxembourg. It was higher than Monaco. You know, a bunch of places in Europe. It had a higher ease of doing business score in. So as a business person, that mattered. That might not matter to everybody because they might not be business people, right? So that was a standout. The other thing that was a standout was there was no learning curve. In a lot of these countries, not just African countries, but countries, period, there's a huge learning curve. The longer you're trying to figure out the market and the community and the society, is the longer it takes you to start being able to contribute to the community or the society. And contributing value typically equals some sort of remuneration to you, right? So if you're adding value, that's typically how you make money, right? And if you're not adding value but still making money, that typically doesn't last very long. Okay, so the faster you add value to that community, the faster you start, making money. And if you have a huge learning curve that you have to go through in order to start adding value, that means that you have a huge amount of time before you start being able to take care of yourself, monetarily speaking, right? So that was a standout for sure. Um, so no learning curve. The education that like people like really care about was on par, right? So technically, Kenya has the second best medical system in Africa. For people who look like me, they have the best medical system in Africa because the country that has quote unquote number one still has white only cities. And a lot of their number one stuff is in those white only, well, towns. So there's like one Da Vinci machine on the entire continent. It is in that country, but it's also in a whites only town. So to me, that doesn't equate to best medical on the continent. So, things like that stood out to me, which made this the place to go. It's not necessarily the best place for everybody, though. It's just the best place, for me and the vast majority of my clients. Even the ones that try to go somewhere else typically come back. That's a cool idea. I think all people should a family crest and constitution. Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. The crest will come in time because the crest has to mean something typically historically, and so you have to describe the crest, and that's where people typically fall short, and then they just go, fake it and buy a book and look up their last name, which those are all fake. Those are all marketing schemes, which it's crazy because a lot of people have those tattooed on their body somewhere and all kinds of other nonsense. But there's a language based system that describes crest, and it's called a blazon. And so if you can't create a blazon, then you wouldn't actually be able to have a legitimate crest. So the crest comes with time. The Constitution is the most important because the Constitution is going to be the foundation that creates those historical, references that will eventually create really a coat of arms. The crest is actually just the top part of the coat of arms, right? So the family crest is actually just the very top piece of the coat of arms. What's a Da Vinci machine? A Da Vinci machine is a robotic surgical machine. That's amazing. There are three. Da Vinci is the American one. The other one is I can't think of the name of the. There's a British one, and there's a Chinese one. The Chinese one is currently, unless something has changed in the last few months, it's currently the only one that is certified for like telehealth surgery, which is crazy in my book. Because what if you lose internet connection or the power goes out? I don't know. But they're able to do surgery like over the internet, which is crazy. Wait, what? I have no idea what that even means. But yeah, that's what a Da Vinci is. So typically, like the surgical team has to be trained on Da Vinci. And there's one, and it's not even like there's one here. It's like one part-time machine. And yeah, so we were focused on and are still focused on fundraising to open a world-class like robotic hospital. So we are focused on bringing Da Vinci's to Kenya, which would take it over the top. It would absolutely then become number one on the continent. We wanted to do that with a maternity focused hospital, though, since black women in the United States, according to the government, are dying at 3.5 times the rate of other women during childbirth. And it's worse in the UK. So we wanted to be able to at least have some sort of solution to that ridiculous problem. Um, but it's expensive, so it's going slowly. But we're working on it. A Da Vinci machine alone, like we were looking at GE MRIs and Philips MRIs, and like the MRI alone is like $1.5 million. The Da Vinci is like 7-8 million by itself, right? So one Da Vinci surgical machine, surgical robot, and one MRI that's has a high enough technology point that it can do what's called functional MRI or fMRIs, and you're already at $10 million. You don't have a building yet. There's no building, there's no land, there's no doctors, there's no nurses. Right? You got two pieces of machinery. You've paid $10 million, right? So yeah, it's coming, but it's coming slowly. It's unfortunate. It's so unfortunate that our people are so risk averse because within our community, it's almost impossible to raise the funds and do a group economics, situation. And so it's sad. It's sad. But yeah, but we'll get it. It is what it is. We'll do it the way we got to do it. Now, if a woman would have a child in Kenya, would that child be a citizen? Possibly. Our legal team would say yes. What's the medical accuracy? Oh, they're amazing. Yeah. Look it up. The Da Vinci's are amazing. They're not new. The Da Vinci is like the oldest one. The Chinese one is new. So that one there might not be a whole bunch of data on, but the Da Vinci's not new. 10 million US dollars. No. 10 million US dollars for the two machines. That's not the cost of it. We need 50 million. Yeah. It's costly. Yeah. Just essentially just the radiology department alone would cost $10 million. So yeah, we've been working on it, and it's irritating. All right, let me get on my soapbox for 5 minutes and then I'll jump back off. There is a very kind of, you know, blah. It's not bad. It's not great hospital that's out here, and they do this. They have the same kind of concept. They're not focused on making sure Black women survive childbirth, of course, but they have a similar concept of like, all right, let's build great medicine and have that available for people. Okay, fine. They literally like made a phone call to the French embassy, and the French embassy gave them $30 million. Like, it's so different for other ethnic groups. Whereas like we've reached out to like the what is it called? The Black Caucus, you know what I mean, in Congress and all of that. And we reached out to all the NAACPs and all of that stuff. Like our people do not operate like other people do. So it is irritating because it is something that could, despite the price, it could actually just be done. But it was funny. We were actually in this group. It was a deal room, was what it's called. So we were in this group at a deal room watching like deals happen in real time, right? And there were some folks that were like, hey, listen, let's just start a fund. It'll be a small fund. We'll do some land banking. We'll build some Airbnbs. We'll do some agriculture, like small scale stuff. We'll get the money going. And then we'll come back and we'll do something else. And then everybody will have a share, right, in that. So it's like a community-based organization, right? And they were like, how about $100 a month, right? And so we're watching this in real time. We're watching it as it happens, right? How about $100 a month to do this initial fund, right? So we're going to do $100 a month. We're going to do it for 2 years. Then we're going to go build a bunch of Airbnbs and a bunch of, farms and stuff like that. And in the 2 years that we're doing it, we're going to hold it in this bank, and we're going to put it in, 364-day bonds, right? 1 year bonds, and just let it build a little bit of money while it's in there. And then we're going to go out and we're going to do what we're going to do. And people were like, oh, it's $100 a month? Cool. That's like what I pay for coffee. Like I pay $2 a day for coffee, you know what I mean? Or I go to Starbucks and I pay $4 a day. So like, all right, cool. That's my coffee and my Danish. So yeah, no problem. $100 a month, we could do that. Like if I lose $100 a month, I don't care. Like that was the mindset of these people at this deal room. So our turn came because there were different people like circling in and out of the deal room, making deals. So our turn came, and somebody from our community had a similar type of thing, but it was way less. It was like $10 a month. And our people were like, we need to see the business plan. We need to see the the financials of we need to vet for $10 a month. Whereas other people were like, you want 100? We got you. Let's go. And their community is blowing up, making money hand over fist. And we wanted a full on business plan for $10. So it's the mindset sometimes kills us, man. So it is frustrating, but it's hard, but we just do it anyway. Do the locals change prices of stuff in the grocery store when they hear your accent? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. One of the good things is that here some of the stores are price tagged. So it actually used to be like this in China when I used to live there as well. There would be places where you go, there were no price tags. So everything was a negotiation, which is value-based pricing, which we do in America, by the way, right? Just most people aren't on the business level that they would need to be on to realize that we do that in America, but we do, right? That's why you can go to a car dealership, and when you buy a car, you can negotiate and get different terms, different rates, and different prices for the car you buy, right? So two people come and buy the same car, they don't pay the same price. We all know that in the United States, and no one is like, oh my God, they're ripping me off. They charge me a different price for the car. We don't do that because we know it's just value-based pricing. So that's what happens in most of the world. I don't know why we like twist it in our head like it's something we've never seen before and act like people are trying to rip us off when it exists in all of our home countries. But that's neither here nor there. There are places that have like price tags. So the price tag is the price tag. There are other places that have value-based pricing and they're open market. So you can go in there, you can haggle. You can pay different prices on different days, depending on what the value is to you. So both of those things do exist. They're not necessarily based on accent. They're typically based on value. So like rich Kenyans pay more than poor Kenyans. It just, it is what it is. It's nuts. It's nuts. Yeah, and somebody pointed out, I was actually really, really happy, Momo, that we were in that deal room, that it was a deal convention. I'm actually really, really happy that we were there because the next people that came up, like, kind of wagged the finger at our people and was like, you can see everybody else doing deals. No one has asked their people the same questions you guys are asking us to get deals 3 times more expensive. Like, what is wrong with you? And so I was happy that that was able to happen in real time on the spot, that you could see, like, you could literally see the Asians making their deal. You could see the Jews making their deals. You could see, what I mean? The European, you're like, what is going on? Like, what is wrong with you? And so I'm happy that that was available because typically we're isolated. So we can't do a compare and contrast in real time on the spot. But in that particular situation, we were able to do that. And I'm super happy that they called them out for it because it really was ridiculous. But yeah, that's the crazy reality, of fundraising as a black entrepreneur. It sucks, but I mean, you can see it everywhere. If you search it on TikTok, you'll see it. Search it on YouTube, you'll see it. It sucks. Yeah, no, absolutely. We have so unfortunately the problem is that we're a little Janus, right? So Janus had 2 faces, right? Like he was the Roman god with the 2 faces. And so we have a bit of a Janus complex in that we are incredibly defensive internally and incredibly docile externally. That becomes the real problem, right? Is that we'll go into other people's societies and be completely docile and just do whatever we're told and invest in whatever we're told to invest in, but internally that's where the traumas apparently present themselves, which is sad. It depends, Ngole. It depends on where you live. If you go to the top of Mount Kenya, you can have a snowball fight. I live at the beach, so it's like I don't know, maybe 90 degrees every day, 80 to 90. But if you wanted cold, you could definitely get that. The temperature is based on elevation here because everything's at the equator, so it's not based on latitude, but it's based on elevation. So, like I said, if you went up Mount Kenya, you could play in the snow at the top of Mount Kenya and then come back down Mount Kenya and come to Diani and go swimming with the dolphins, right? So, it's whatever you want. Yeah, 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 definitely. Definitely that. Especially some of the online movement. It's a little bit different when you got to show your face, right? But some of these online movements where you never see who's talking and they're talking crazy. Yeah, I hear you, Momo. Yeah, 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 anytime. We were actually doing, we're still going to do it, but we were actually doing this really, really awesome investment. Um, and it's one of the few investments that we've ever designed that directly benefits everybody. Normally, somebody has an indirect benefit. Like when you're like, oh, well, everybody benefits. Somebody's benefit is typically indirect, right? And it's typically like the people or the community or like the stakeholders that really haven't added any value to the thing, but you still have to like be a good corporate citizen and like think of the impact on them. They're typically the ones that get the indirect, like whatever, right? But we were able to structure this thing where everyone gets a direct benefit, which is cool as hell. Just based on our mentality about the thing and trying to make sure that we help everybody, as much as we can whenever we make a move. And so essentially, not without getting too deep into it, essentially it's structured in such a way that you can create housing, right? And then that housing has certain aspects, like, so there's certain aspects like gardening is necessary, pool maintenance is necessary, plumbing is necessary, electric, is necessary because they're condominiums, right? So it's like a high rise. So there's certain jobs that it opens up, but that's not really the biggest thing. But what this apartment building allows for is for the apartment building's management to be operated as a real estate investment trust, which real estate investment trusts are traded on the stock market, right? So you can buy a share in what's called a REIT, right? So now this housing unit stands as a real estate investment trust. But it's also designed that the people who live there, especially if we set it up as like a low income housing and they come in being able to live there, not being able to afford to maybe live in other places, actually gain shares of the REIT over time, right? So as they live there, they gain ownership. It's not just they're renting and like how some people are like, I'm throwing away money at renting, which isn't really true. But anyway, that mindset wouldn't even apply to this, right? And so what ends up happening is over time they gain equity in the REIT and they can borrow against that equity the same way rich people borrow against their stocks to do other things to fix their finances. And they gain this bit of financial literacy by being a REIT owner because there's like annual meetings. Of course, they don't have to attend, but if they're serious about their own financial literacy, they would attend these annual meetings and they would, listen to the prospectuses and learn how finances actually work at that level, right? And but it's something that their kids can inherit from them. They get dividends, so they're actually getting paid from the condo that they live in and all of that stuff. So it literally directly benefits everybody. It directly benefits the folks that couldn't afford housing and they're in the low income housing. It raises them out of that poverty through dividends. So over time they're not in a position where they can't afford housing anymore. It affects the local community by opening jobs up since it's an actual like compound that needs employment, and so on and so forth, right? So it's a very well-rounded, investment plan, and it uses staples like REITs. A REIT is a staple. That's not something new that someone has to worry about. Like, oh, what's a REIT? Will it work? I don't know. This is something new. No, a REIT's a very stable situation, right? Anyone who's studying investments understands what a REIT is and how it works and all of that, right? So it's not some newfangled, I figured some nonsense out. Will now have to be worried about whether that's actually going to work, right? So there's nothing new. There's nothing crazy. There's nothing that's hard to understand for any actual investor. And it's the same mindset. We ran into that same mindset of the people who we wanted to be involved, our own people, being ridiculous about it. And a Chinese investor came in and was like, I'll pay everything. This is the greatest idea I've ever heard. I will give you all the money right now. Right? So these are the things that we have to like deal with, where it's like we want our people to be enriched by this. We want our people to be uplifted by this, but they don't jump at the opportunity, and then we get stuck in those cycles. So, but we're not going to allow the community to suffer just because people have low risk tolerance. You know what I mean? So eventually we're going to go with the investors that want to invest. It just is what it is. But it is frustrating and it is sad. He didn't listen. He didn't even ask for a term sheet. Straight shares. He's like, oh, it's a REIT. I'll literally, just buy 25% of the shares, but we'll value the shares at the entire price of the project. Like no term sheet, no nothing. It was crazy. Crazy. But it just makes so much daggone sense. Like even me just giving you the high level overview, it's like, oh, of course that makes sense. You know what I mean? Who wouldn't want to live in a place where while they live there, they gain ownership and the place pays them to live there, and they can, pass on those shares and those stocks to their grandkids, and like it's a no-brainer. You know what I mean? Especially since it's all existing framework, right? But you know, if you know, you know. Yeah. Yeah, but no, thanks, Momo. Thanks for bringing that up. I mean, I guess that wasn't the topic today, but thanks for mentioning it. Because it is a frustrating reality of, what we end up doing out here. Are your clients investing in special funds such as Oak? Yes. But only after they don't have to work anymore. So they do that with sovereign bonds, right? So we ladder treasury bonds for our clients who are focused on being financially free. After we ladder those treasury bonds, then we target that they will receive 50,000 shillings a month for, about 10 years, right? So they got 10 years of every month the government is giving them a check and they don't have to work. Once they get to that situation, then the excess money, yes, they then turn around and a lot of them invest in Mansa X, Oak, and things of that nature. Arca Pro and all of that, they invest in all of that. Some of them do land banking, which is a little bit more speculative, but you know. What's the difference? Well, right now they're both doing about 20% return on investment, so there's not a big difference with the return on investment, but there's a difference in the fees, right? So one fund charges way more fees than the other fund, but like some of the fees are like performance bonuses, right? So if you have a bad year, then you wouldn't pay those fees. So some people feel like, oh well, that's an incentive for them to have a good year, and so okay paying the fees because they feel like the fees get them a better result. but the other fund that doesn't have those fees is getting the same ROI as them. So I don't know. I guess the true test is going to be, the bear market, right? If it starts crashing and the one that has the extra fees deals with the crash better and makes up the money better, and the one that doesn't have the fees, it just crashes, then maybe that would be a case for, like, in the bad times you want to pay the fees. And that might be an incentive to get people to get creative about getting you out of a bear market. But currently, they both have almost identical return on investments. But the investors are not getting identical checks because one has more fees than the other. So that's part of the due diligence. Wouldn't be possible in America. Yeah. Well, think about so. In order to ladder bond for the standard average person to where they don't need to work at all anymore, it only costs like $75,000. Take $75,000 and quit your job and not have to work for 10 years in America. I can't wait to see that. Please, by all means, show me how to do that. Right? So it just wouldn't work there. But here, for now, while the bond rates are ridiculously high, like they are, $75,000, and you wouldn't have to work at all. Now, where would you live, right? So, like our special packages and stuff like that, we have a special going on right now until February that includes all of that stuff, right? And so, it's like 185,000 because it includes your immigration, it includes land here by the beach, it includes building a brand new construction 1,600 square foot house for you to live in, so you have a place to live, and then it includes those bonds paying you out every month so that you don't have to work for the next 10 years of your life, right? So you still need a place to live. Obviously, you need to be able to cook food and all of that stuff, but just the bond portion of it only costs 75,000. So, which is ridiculous, to not have to work another day. Well, not have to work for the next 10 years of your life for 75,000. That's crazy. We don't even think of things like that because they're typically not possible where we're from. I am Ethiopia. Is that I am Ethiopian? Nice to meet you. Hope you're having fun out there. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, typically, yeah. Most of our definitely relocation clients. I mean, why would a Kenyan need to relocate to Kenya, right? So none of our relocation clients are Kenyan, but most of our relocation clients are American, followed by Canadians and Caribbeans, followed by UK. And there's a tiny, tiny, like these tiny little communities of like Afro Swedes and stuff like that come through as well, but they're like 2%. Yeah, our law firm is in Mombasa. No, do not maintain a U.S. law firm, only a Kenyan one. Mm, Anything imported is typically the same price, right? So if it's not made where you are, if it's imported, it's typically the same price. Yeah, yeah. So trying to think. Man, I really had a good example of this, and now I can't remember the numbers. We just we just had a client came over. They bought a car, and the car they bought was, what was it? Huh? Oh, it was a Kia. It was a seven-seater Kia. Like the Sedona, was it? It was a Kia, whatever, the seven-seater SUV, and it was $2,000 more than it would have cost in Philly, like manufacturer retail price. I want to say it was like 36,000 here, brand new with the warranty and all of that stuff. Blah 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 blah, fully loaded, and it would have been 34 in Philadelphia. So same prices. Davinsky, how's it going? I have no idea what that means. What's an average day like? Ooh, what's an average day like? Do I have average days anymore? So, I mean, an average day is I wake up at 5 in the morning so I can do this thing with you guys. So there's that. And then when I'm done with that, typically I'll go play with my son, maybe go swimming with him or something like that. Then I'll start my work day. So it's about to be 8 a.m. here. We don't open until 10. So I'll start my workday and do whatever I have to do in my early meetings. My early meetings are typically my thinking meetings, and then lunch, and then a staff meeting, and then I'll probably go to the beach, have something to eat at the beach. By then, it would be evening time, where the sun is a little lower. Then I'd go play tennis. My wife wants me to start playing golf again. I don't really like golf. A lot of business happens on the golf course, though, but I don't really like golf. But I am a tennis player, so I'll probably play some tennis, something like that, or basketball, or something like that. Try to stay in shape. I'm 20 pounds overweight right now, so I gotta get those pounds off of me. And then that's essentially it. I'll come home, hang out with my son. My son can kind of come with me wherever, right? So sometimes he comes with me to the tennis courts, but he does other things. We have a governess, a full-time living governess, so she's in charge of my son's education. So she'll be there, watching over him while I'm doing whatever it is I need to do. So there's that. So yeah, I guess that's the average day. I don't know. I don't know what else. But that's an average day. How often do I go to the beach? Probably daily. It's like across the street. So like sometimes I won't go to the beach for the sake of going to the beach, but like I'll go have lunch and the restaurant will be on the beach, right? So it's very rare, I guess, that a day passes that I'm not actually on the beach. Uh, how many American style? Yeah, I'm assuming you mean equivalent technology class and equivalent like medical technology to America. I'm hoping that's what you mean. Hospitals are there, so there's one Aga Khan. It's a private hospital or whatever. So there's Aga Khan, Ukunda. There's Palm Beach Hospital. There's Deani Beach Hospital. So those are the three that are within, I don't know, 10 minutes. And then there's a public hospital, which is actually the number one maternity hospital. What is it called? Kinando Kwetu Hospital. So those are the four major hospitals. And then there's like clinics everywhere. Yeah. Are you in Africa? Yes, I'm in Diani Beach. Oh, you're in Kenya. Yes, I'm in Diani Beach. Yeah. Welcome to Kenya. Thank you. I've lived quite a while now. I'll actually be a citizen of Kenya in like a few months. So it takes 7 years to get your citizenship going. So it's been quite a while. Ah, you missed that question earlier. No problem though. The food is international because I'm in Diani, but even in Nairobi, the food is international. I used to live in Kisii, in a place called Sunika, and so the food was not as international in Kisii. So it just depends on where you live. Yeah, yeah, no, I love Kenya. Kenya is definitely on point. Last night, actually, I had Kenyan. I had something called mukimo, which is, you know what mukimo is? Mukimo is shepherd's pie without the beef, right? So like how you get the peas and the corn and all of that in the mashed potato for shepherd's pie. If you just took the mashed potato part with no beef underneath, that's exactly what mukimo is. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I never thought about it till. But so mukimo, fried cabbage, and what? Oh, and like we had like some stir fry, like steak tenderloin strips, like sliced up. I feel like there was something else that I'm just not thinking of. Oh, collard greens. Collard greens. Collard greens are called skuma wiki here. Skuma wiki is collard greens. There's also spinach, but believe it or not, my doctor told me not to eat spinach. Apparently, spinach has something called oxalate in it, or it turns into oxalate, and oxalate creates kidney stones. I did not know that. So, while spinach is good for you if you've had a kidney stone, which I had my first kidney stone a couple months ago, went to the hospital, got it taken care of, great experience. But yeah, they analyzed the kidney stone to see like what's going on, and so yeah, doctor was like, no more spinach. Imagine that your doctor's telling you not to eat spinach. It's more than just spinach though. It's spinach, chocolate, caffeine, which is why I only drink 1 cup of coffee a day now. Um, what else? Excess vitamin C turns into oxalate, so there's that. So yeah, whole different dietary plan. Hope you do another live for businesses that can be done. Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, anyone. This is kind of an open live. If you want to ask about businesses, it's okay. Yeah, it's interesting. Most of so we used to have these agents, right? And the agents would come in with like whoever, and then but the agents would essentially own their clients, right? So they would come in and like they would use us as a vendor, and but that got messy because the agents weren't on the ground, so the agents were like getting scammed. So we stopped doing the agent thing, and so now we still do referrals, and so people will refer us clients or whatever, but then we can like manage things on the ground. And so but even so, a lot of the agent clients were doing like Airbnb stuff. So if you're a foreigner, in order to do like Airbnb, you need an investor permit, and which is really actually I like this the system of it. It's actually pretty cool, in the sense that it doesn't allow like bullshitters to come do business, right? So the only way that you can get an investor permit is by putting 100,000 US dollars or the equivalent thereof in a Kenyan bank account, right? So if you're saying businessman, you're going to come, you're going to hire the locals, you're going to this, that, and the third, you actually have to have enough money to manage a business for like at least a year. You can't just hire people and fire them in 2 months. You know what I mean? So they make sure that those people, you don't pay that money to the government or anything. You just have to have it in a bank account. It's still your money, right? But you have that. There's a business plan that you submit. You have to register a company and all of that, and then you get an investor permit, and then you can go ahead and run whatever you want. So Um, what's your thought on BPO? Bank public offering? What's BPO? Okay. Well, you run your business, I would hope, right? Like if you're claiming that you're a business person and that you're coming here to do business, I would hope you use 100,000 for running your business, right? Business processing, like call centers in India. Yeah, I mean you can do that. You can do that here because everyone speaks English here. That's a huge bonus over like Uganda and Tanzania, right? So if you're like in Arusha, good luck speaking English to anybody. You know what I mean? So whereas you can be in the backwoods of Kenya and speak to an 80-year-old woman and she knows English. So because of that, I mean, I would assume the processing center would have a much better customer satisfaction rate than the Indian ones because a lot of times like they can't understand like the Filipinos and the Indians like you can't understand what they're saying whereas Kenyans speak really solid English. Oh yeah. No, I heard about that actually. That's a big thing. So for you guys on the other live streams, what he said is I'm in Kenya and I write academic assignments for students. It feeds me, but getting clients is tough. But that's like a whole big thing here, where there are like Kenyan students that are even like taking tests for for foreign students and all of that. So that just goes to show actually how good the command of the English language and all that is that college professors are not looking at like these papers that are being written by Kenyan students and being like, oh, what's going on? You don't have grammar skills, like you can't English isn't your first language. What's going on here? Where they look at the papers that are written in it looks just like any other paper that comes across their desk. So yeah, no, the I mean creating a processing like a call center like that would make sense. Probably better to have a Kenyan virtual assistant than like a Filipino one that you can't understand what they're saying. So yeah, those things could definitely work. Oh, you mean like our clients? All right. So typically our clients, when they do the 100,000, then they end up releasing it to us to build something for them. Typically, right? So typically our clients need some kind of structure. So like if they're Airbnbs, they build the Airbnbs from the ground up, right? So we just built like a duplex for a client from Tennessee, Murphsville, Tennessee. So she has a six bedroom, 6 and 2 half bath duplex. She has an investor permit, which is required. And what else does she have? She has a giant swimming pool that's the size of like a 50 by 100 plot. She has 2 plots of land that she's built it on. It's down here by the beach. So she put up the 100,000 to get the permit, but now she has to build this giant duplex and buy the land and do all of that stuff, which costs more than 100,000. So she released those funds to do the other thing. So you typically like kill two birds with one stone, where you put the 100,000 up, but if you're for real about the business, there's things you got to get. You know what I mean? There's things you got to buy. Even the businesses that don't necessarily have a location per se, still need like equipment, right? So there's been a couple businesses that are like food truck businesses type of situation. And so they use like a almost like a community kitchen. And so there's like a kitchen that you can rent hours in, and so they prep their food in the kitchen, and they go out into the food truck. So they don't have like a physical location per se, but they still needed to buy the food truck, right? And it has to be probably customized to deal with the type of food that they're trying to do and all of that. So typically the 100,000 isn't a big deal to real business people because there were some kind of expenses that they had to spend on in order to do business. So what that ends up rolling over into is like, oh, okay, fine, I got to put up this money. So it becomes a timing thing with a professional, right? Because if they're like, oh, let me buy the food truck and take care of everything else later, now you just spent some of the money that could have qualified you for the investor permit and you don't have it liquid anymore. Right? So if you're like, okay, let me just get the food truck and I'll after I get the food truck, then I'll get the business permit, then I'll get if your head is in the wrong, direction, which might be the right direction for where you're from, right? So like where I was born, you would have to get the food truck first because you have to have the food truck inspected to get the business license. So that would need to be the first thing that you need to do. But coming in as a foreign investor, you have to have the right to open a business first in a country that's not yours. So the timing matters, and that's why the professional matters. Hey, what's going on, Eddie? Good to see you, man. Do Kenyans have an? Some of them do. It depends on their education level, quite frankly. Like Lupita doesn't, you know what I mean? But she was raised internationally, right? I feel like she was even born in Mexico, where her dad was the ambassador, and now her dad is the governor of Kisumu, right? So it depends on your education level. Well, that's not possible, right? If you're coming in and you're starting a business, there's no such thing as a business that doesn't have costs, right? It's just not possible. You're going to have to pay some, especially if it's an international expansion. Maybe if you're at home, you absorb the costs and you pretend your business doesn't have costs, right? It's like if you're at home and you're paying your rent, and so it's going to be a home-based business, so you're not paying business overhead because you're still paying your rent. Technically, if you were going to, audit that, the area in your home that you were using for your business, there'd be a portion of the rent that was actually going to that, right? And you can actually take a tax deduction on your taxes because of that. But you might mentally decide to act like, oh, well, I got this online thing going on, so I'm not paying any overhead, which isn't actually true. You're just absorbing the overhead and what you're already paying. But if you're coming to another country, you can't do that. So there's always going to be some sort of overhead if you're going to be running a business or you're fooling yourself. What's the sector you think Americans relocating can any really anywhere that they have expertise they can do well. You know, so like I had a guy who worked at a coffee shop in the United States, almost like working at Java House, right? And he came here and did deals with coffee farmers on the border, up in Lualand on the border of Uganda. Excuse me. And he did a $1.27 million deal with exporting coffee beans to the United States, and he was a coffee shop worker, like and not even like a barista, because he didn't work at like Starbucks. You know what I mean? He worked at Dunkin' Donuts, so like very low level, no education worker, right? Took him a long time to do it. Okay, but he was a millionaire by the time he was done. So that was a great success story for him. But it's whatever you know what I mean? Whether he happened to know coffee because he worked at Dunkin' Donuts, and so that's what he leaned into. But whatever you can do well in, especially if you're like not doing it here. Because if you're doing it here, then you have to learn the local market, right? But if you're just exporting back, to the market that you understand the best, then you should be able to do pretty well with that. Where does my kid go to school? My kid's 21 months old, so he doesn't go to school. He has like a, I don't know, it's like a daycare type of thing. Suppose it could be like preschool. Yeah, it's really not a daycare. I guess it is preschool. He doesn't necessarily need daycare because of the governess, but he does go to like a preschool type of thing where they, sing about colors and stuff like that. But yeah, he's not two yet. Hey, how's it going? How about sourcing land for those relocating? Have you mastered land buying process in Kenya? Oh yeah, long time ago. Long, long time ago. So yeah, we own a law firm. One of our lawyers, all they do is real estate conveyance. That's all we pay them to do. So we have a lawyer that's dedicated to immigration, a lawyer that's dedicated to real estate conveyance, a lawyer that's dedicated to litigation, um, and a lawyer that's dedicated to business conveyance. So yeah, we made our mistakes 12 years ago. We don't make mistakes anymore. You guys like car crashes. Tell us about the mistakes. So, initially, when we were doing our due diligence in the other African countries, we weren't doing due diligence in Kenya. We had actually never heard. I'd never heard of Kenya. But one of my uncles married a Kisi lady, actually, which is why Kisi was the first place that I lived. So one of my uncles married a Kisi lady. They got married at Virginia Beach in the United States, and then after that, there was kind of this like open call, like, hey, if anybody wants to go to Kenya, meet the other side of the married in family. We're gonna do a trip in a month. Let us know, and blah 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 blah. So I was like, you know what, screw it, I'll go. And then so they, and mind you, he's married to a Kenyan now, but she's been in America so long that it's like Kenyans in the diaspora need professional assistance too. So they ended up doing a land deal at the beach, like on the water. And it was cool. They did this land deal, whatever. They got, the beach house at the water. We used to go back and forth there for like years, like maybe 5 years before one day somebody showed up with a bulldozer, knocked down the perimeter wall, knocked down the house, all of that stuff. And it was a bit of a like an inside job type of situation with like the lawyer that they had used and like all kinds of stuff. But they definitely got scammed out of it because they didn't really know how to do due diligence. And one of them was a born Kenyan. You know what I mean? And she still got scammed. So that was interesting because it was like, ooh, all right, what are we gonna do here? And so you kind of got two options when you see something like that. You can just like decide, okay, this is not for me. I'm just gonna quit or whatever. Or you can figure out like why it happened and see if there's any kind of logical, lines as to why it happened and if there was a way to prevent it, which there was. My uncle's a little bit of a I don't know what word would properly describe some of his flaws, but he's a bit of a I guess he's a bit of an egomaniac in the sense that he really feels like he needs to make things happen on his own. He has a PhD, he owns a couple companies, so he really does have that kind of I know what I'm doing and I'll figure it out on the fly type of mentality. And so it didn't work out for him this time. But that allowed us to see like, wait a minute, there's like a legit way to do things and an illegitimate way to do things. That was a hurt piece. That was a really, really nice, like 7 acres on the beach. They won the court case, but they didn't get the land. And I think that was on purpose. I wasn't party to the case, so I don't know that everything that's going on. And that's another issue when you're dealing with like egomaniacs, is they won't necessarily give you any evidence that works against them in the stories that they tell. But they essentially got their purchase price back instead of getting the land back. I would have went for the land, but they so they said that they just didn't want to be bothered with it. And so they got their purchase price back. But the the scammers apparently had like appealed it. And apparently, my understanding is they kind of appealed out of spite. So, like, yes, they had the right to appeal. No, they're not going to win. Sorry, guys. No, they're not going to win the appeal. But by appealing it, the money like went into escrow and it'll sit there for like another year or two, like just whatever. I think they're actually going to have to pay more when they lose the appeal, because they'll have to pay interest or whatever. But and then it's like, all right, how do you collect? Right. So I know there's like money in escrow or whatever, so there's at least a certain amount of money that's sitting in a bank account under the court's order. But it is what it is. So it was an expensive lesson to learn, about not thinking what you're doing in someone else's daggone country. Right. So we ended up immediately like finding a law firm to purchase, because even some of the lawyers, like, they're doing whatever they're doing, they're not giving you their full attention. You know what I mean? You're not getting what you want out of them. So we had to find a solid firm and then buy it, so that yes, you are giving me your full attention, or you're giving the unemployment line your full attention. Choose. Right. And so we had to set things up so that we could navigate things effectively. And then yeah, that's the rest is history. So there you go. There's your horror story. But yeah, luckily it wasn't me. I'm not saying I'm any smarter than my uncle though. But I definitely try to do things the right way. Yeah, yeah. There's definitely that. Here it's pretty obvious though. Like, and when it's greenfield land, some of that stuff can be pretty obvious. So any kind of like flooding and all that, you kind of just look and tell. Um, and luckily around here we don't deal with that here specifically. And the majority of our clients do choose the beach. They don't always choose the Annie. A lot of our folks are up in Kalifi and Malindi, and some in Watamu actually. But like, we have a special going now with the whole bond laddering thing, so that the people don't have to work, once they get here, and they get a check from the government every month instead. And the land that's included in that is Indiana. So there's no choice in that. It's a package. So you can choose what you want, but then the package price goes away and it costs what it costs. But if you choose the whole package where everything is included, then those plots of land are like Indiana. And so out here, we don't really deal with the flooding thing, which is great. But I guess it's because we're at ocean level, and there's a lot of like coral in the ground, so the ground is porous, and water can flow through to the aquifer. But the coral and the sand and all that like filter it out. So yeah, definitely a cool little ecosystem to live in. But it's super important that you're like dealing with somebody who can not just do a title search, because title searches are not good enough to figure out whether land is real or not. But they got to be able to do a full on due diligence. Yeah, no, my uncle did do a title search. And there's an origin document called a green card. And that green card should be or an origination of property document, right? So there should only ever be one for any piece of property because it maps the origin of the property. So if you do a title search, the title came back clean. If you do due diligence and you go all the way back to the green card, that property had two green cards, which is not possible. So that means that at some point in time, someone in the government ran a scam on that property. And so now the property is going to be contested until the court destroys one of the green cards. And then which one? Which one's the real original document? Which one's the scam document? You know, so it's not as possible anymore. It used to be like really, really, really easy to do back in the day, but things are becoming digital now. So as things digitize, and they're actually digitizing this county right now, right? Because this is so they did Nairobi, and then they came here. They didn't go to another city. So that kind of shows you the income power of this area. So they digitized Nairobi. It's something called Artisasa. So they did Nairobi, and then they came to Diani. Instead of doing like Nairobi, then Mombasa, then Kisumu, then Eldoret. Like instead of going city to city, they did Nairobi, and then they came to Diani. So now those title deeds are digitized in a digital system called Artisasa, and so it's way harder now to do anything with those title deeds. And as the entire country gets digitized, we'll see less and less and less of the land nonsense happening. But for us, it's never happened because I saw what happened to my uncle. And so I had a legal team from the jump. So we've never had a piece of land go awry. We did have a client a few years back come take a look at a house that we had set up for her, and she was like, "No, I don't want the house," da 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 da, and backed out of the deal. And then like forced like a local search and found this guy who was, a one-stop shop. I'll do it all for you, local guy. And we were telling her, chill, relax, and she's like, no, it's a vibe. Da, 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 da. Even to the point where like I personally went to her with her to the meeting with the local guy, and during the meeting I'm talking to him, and like she literally started fighting with me and like arguing with me. I don't know if she had a crush on the guy or something. It was so bizarre. And so she went ahead and did it and got completely scammed. Then came back to our law firm to sue the guy. But got completely scammed out of her money. So, and that's the thing is our company is a U.S. company, right? And then we have all our Kenyan vendors that handle everything, right? So we have a U.S. company, so we're held accountable to U.S. law. When something goes wrong, if you're our client, which is why we got rid of like the agents, because the agents, it's a weird thing where they're the agent's client, but we're doing a lot of the work. But if you're our client and you're in the United States or whatever, you just pick up a phone, you know what I mean? And the district attorney can do whatever the district attorney needs to do, freeze our bank accounts, all kinds of crazy stuff, because we're a U.S. company, right? So there's accountability. She can't even find the Kenyan dude, you know what I mean? Because you can have a fake ID and you can have a fake name and, you know what I mean, all that stuff, and sell stuff you don't own and blah, 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 blah. So that's one of the top reasons why our clients come to us, is because they can actually hold us accountable. We can't run anywhere. But yeah, that sucked for her. And I mean, we had to split the case into two separate cases because there was one she paid for the plot, which is standard. She paid for the plot and then she paid for construction, which that would be the way it would happen anyway. But the whole thing was a scam, so we had to sue for the plot payment, and then sue. There's a separate suit for the construction payment. So you know, It's a mess. But literally, like she was told not to do it, and literally made a decision on vibes. I can remember that conversation like it was yesterday. Like, what are you talking about? It's the vibe. I trust my vibes. I've been manifesting this. Okay. Such a frustrating conversation. Yeah, no. Some people, you're absolutely right. Some people do have to learn the hard way. You're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. That's actually, that's actually like a childhood observation of mine, right? Like I could ask somebody, "Hey, how was that?" And I would take them at their word, right? And I remember like being maybe in middle school or something, and there were like hard-headed like kids that were like, okay, I got to go do it. I'm like, no, 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 no. I heard what he said. I'm good. I learned from what he said. I'm learning the easy way. And like they had to learn the hard way. So it was interesting because like when I got into entrepreneurship, and started succeeding, which my first company was arguably successful, right? And then my next company was arguably successful as well. It lasted more than 5 years and made a profit, right? Then my next company, like, which was par for the course. And then maybe two or three other ventures failed, and then the next company was like successful again. Blah 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 blah, blah, right? As I went through all of that, and you start analyzing like, how come like my stuff wins and other people's stuff doesn't win? Like, what is it that I'm doing differently? Let me lean into those strengths and all of that. Being able to learn the easy way, absolutely the number one strength. 100% the number one strength. Being able to learn from other people's failures so I didn't have to fail in order to learn. Absolutely the number one strength in my entrepreneurial toolkit. So some people like they really, really gotta learn the hard way. It's a mess. I mean, to each their own and all, but I would hate to be in that position. Tons of people like that. I hope you don't hang out with them too much. That mindset does rub off. Hang out with people who have the mindset you want, for sure. Who are the employees doing work, or like some of them are contractors. So there's carpenters here today. There's electricians here. What else we got going on? The who? What does that mean? I don't know what these new slang. And my potty means toilet to me. Who's the potty? The hottie. The hottie. That's my son's governess. The potty. It's like, what is that? A new slang? What does that mean? No, I just think no. I only know who you're talking about because the only female who's here right now who's walked by. That's actually a good question. So I have the whole household staff. So my budget is about 80,000 a month. So my budget's a little higher than the standard, person because I have that whole staff, and it's not just my staff here. So there's a farm, and there's a gardener at the farm, and a guard at the farm. We have two Rottweilers and a black lab. So there's a pet handler at the farm. Um, the vet is on staff. The lawyers are on staff, like my personal lawyers. Um, who else? We have a delivery driver who's on staff who, you know, he's essentially a butler. He does shopping for us and all that, and makes daily deliveries. So yeah, I mean, like I have an extensive staff, so it's a little more expensive for me than the average person. A lot of our clients, once their house is set up and all of that, they're right around 50,000 a month. You're, you know, that's more than enough. And so, like, yeah, if I fired everybody, I'd probably be less than that. I'd probably be, I don't know, 30, 40,000 a month. Passive. Oh yeah, the bond laddering, the passive income thing. Yeah, the base level for that is 50,000 a month. That's the base target. Nobody actually makes 50,000 a month. Most of them make like 60, 70. How are they making more than target? Because the target, so you always, as a kind of as a rule in business, or at least one of my rules in business, you under promise, over deliver, right? So our target has always been 10% return on investment, and the returns being guaranteed by the bonds right now are as high as 15%, right? So if we're targeting and we're doing all of our estimates based on 10%, and the lowest bond we've seen, the highest bond is like 15. The lowest bond we've seen was a little over 11. I think it was like 11.8 or something like that. So no matter what, the money they're actually getting is higher than target. So we target 10% ROI, and we shoot for 10 years. And then the bigger bonds are typically like the biggest bond you can get is 30 years, but they're typically around 20. So again, we target 10 years and 10%, and we get like 14% in 20 years. So under promise, over deliver. That's why you can't find any, you know, negative reviews or anything like that, or business Better Business Bureau or anything like that type of stuff with us, because we under promise, over deliver. If I tell you I'm going to get you 50,000 a month and I get you 70,000 a month, how are you going to one star me? Right? Right? Where's the problem with that? So yeah. Also, we're not in control of the bonds. They're not our bonds. They're not corporate bonds. You know what I mean? They're government bonds. So we got to give ourselves enough space too, that if the government changes the percentage, that like we're still okay. That's also why the special ends in February, because as time progresses, the bond interest rates will normalize, right? So right now they're extraordinary, right? You're getting 14% return on investment. You know, even right now, the current bond that's available right now is 14.188% guaranteed by the government. So, but eventually it's going to go back down to 6, 7%, and it's not going to be a situation where you can invest $75,000 in that and then be able to live here for free, you know, and guarantee yourself 50,000 a month minimum. So that opportunity is going to disappear. And a lot of people are going to miss it. Like there's a lot of people who are taking advantage of it, which is great. But a lot of people are going to miss it. There's so many people who've been following me for so long, and they're like, I missed, you know, they're like, we had this one thing with the government contracting, where even if you weren't from America, we could set you up and we could even write your proposals for you to win American government contracts, and then, you know, finance yourself off of that. Now the Doge thing like killed that, so it's not even worth it anymore. But we get, you know, messages from people. Oh, I remember when you were doing the government contract. I missed that opportunity. I remember when you were doing the land bank. I missed that opportunity. And they're going to say the same thing about this one. It's like, They're gonna be like, oh man, I remember when you were doing the bond laddering and people didn't have to work for the next 10 years of their life and they can move to Kenya and instantaneously retire. And I missed that opportunity. So like, it's just, it is what it is. People will always kind of like watch, like they'll kind of watch to see what happens. And, land banking is, we've been land banking since, 2020, or not land banking. We've been, uh, bond laddering since 2023. And so there's actually been a full year cycle. The 2024 is the full year because 2023, the year had already begun. But 2024 is done, right? And so those people who get our reports and have seen a full report of what, the 2024 clients are making per month, like exactly what they're getting paid per month, exactly what they're getting per year, and none of them have to work at all. And so it's one of those things where, it's excuses over action. So this will probably finish this coming year, and we need time to like get it going because the bonds pay out twice a year. They're semi-annual, right? So what ends up happening is we typically have to get one bond 6 times, right? So a single bond 6 times in order to finish the ladder. And so it ends in February because like by the time you onboard, probably the first bond that we'll be looking at would be May. So you're already like, looking at, okay, month number 5, and you need to get 6 of them by the end of the year, right? So that's why it ends in February, because we're not sure if in 2027 it'll even be worth it to do it. So probably by 2027, the people who are going to miss out are going to completely miss out. Then they're just going to talk about, oh man, I missed that opportunity. So it happens over and over and over again. There are some like frequent flyers. There are some people who've been talking that noise for the last 10 years. And they pop up in these lives, like they're not in here right now, but they'll pop up in the lives and be like, yeah. And they've been saying, yeah, for 12 years and just don't do anything. So it's, the mindset shift thing is definitely big. You definitely have to have the mindset. I mean, virtually anybody can do it. Some like, oh, hold on. That one I don't understand. Read what you wrote, and I'll just continue answering on the first comment. But read what you wrote and then come back and rewrite it. um, oh, what if you don't have? Yeah. So again, basically anybody can do it. That's coming from the West, right? So and they're like, well, what if you don't have the money? What if you don't have the whatever? Typically, you can get it done anyway. And there's plenty of ways to do that. So if it's realistic for you in the first place, right? So that's a thing. But if it's realistic for you in the first place, you typically can get your hands on it. So there's all kinds of things that happen. There's something called a home equity investment, where a private equity group comes in, essentially buys shares of your house's future equity up front. You don't have to make the payment for 10 years. You get the money up front and don't have to pay them for 10 years. We get plenty of people who utilize that as a method of engaging in stuff like this. There are people who take the money right out of their retirement, right? Because what is it? A 10% penalty? What are you getting? 14% ROI? It's a no-brainer, right? So there's that. There are folks who take a HELOC. There are folks who take personal loans. There are folks who, just engage in all of the many ways, that are available for them to engage in. And then especially if they're American, if it doesn't work out, what do? They do what Donald Trump did. They file bankruptcy, right? Trump did it 6 times for his companies. He never filed a personal bankruptcy, but his Chapter 11s for his companies, he did it six different times, right? So that's available to Americans, right? They have bankruptcy, right? So it becomes a thing where it's like, all right, do you roll the dice? You give it a fair shot. You really try to do it, but if it doesn't work, you have bankruptcy. And people act like, oh well, I don't want a bankruptcy on my credit report is equal to I live the rest of my life without having to work and I can retire tomorrow. Like what? I'll take 10 bankruptcies on my credit report, but I don't have to work anymore. Like what are you talking about? So like some people are professional at excuses, and they make those excuses make all the sense in the world to them when they really make no logical sense at all. So it just depends. It just depends on if you actually want it. And again, like it has to be, you can't be a 16-year-old kid talking about, you know what I mean? Like it has to be something that's actually legitimate to you. But it truly just depends on how badly you want it. The folks who want it always get it done, and they always get it done like quickly. They always get it done like within months. You know, and McDonald's workers. We were just talking about the Dunkin' Donuts guy who worked at Dunkin' Donuts, making $11 an hour. And did a 1.27 million, export coffee bean deal, because he wanted it. So it doesn't matter. We get like dental hygienists and stuff like that. They make money, right? And RNs, they make money, so it's maybe a little easier for them. A lot of them are living paycheck to paycheck. Like they make money and ain't got no money. So again, it's one of those things where they see the value. They're like, I'm breaking my back over here. I actually make six figures and I'm still paycheck to paycheck. And I can make one move, go over there and never have to work again and not have to worry about money again because it's viable now. It's not going to be viable for much longer. So, you know, but it's a pain point situation, which is everything. That's actually everything, right? They're not. It's not like they're stupid people. Like that's how all commerce works. If there's not enough pain to get you to buy, you don't buy, right? So that's why there's so much like emotional advertising. Like you look at a iPhone, commercial, and by the end of the commercial, you don't even know what the damn phone looks like. It's just people dancing in fields, with $1 million homes, driving Jaguars. It's just this emotional attachment to the product. Like if you have the iPhone, your life will be so great. And there's so much of that marketing out there because that's what moves people to actually do things, is pressing on those pain points and having those emotional reactions. We don't really do that. So we get to see the people who make decisions against their best interests, because they just don't have enough motivation to make a different decision. And so the easier thing to do is to make no decision, which is a decision. So, you know, they just stay stuck. When we first started, it used to irritate the hell out of us because obviously a company with a name like the Diaspora Freedom Initiative, the whole purpose was to provide freedom to people, to your people, to the people of the diaspora and all of that. And so initially it was like, drain the life out of you, what's going on here. But over time, I guess you get jaded to it. You're just like, oh, that's just what it is. Like 10% of the people will act, and of the 10% of the people that act, only half of them will act in earnest, and like it is what it is. So how do we find out where to buy the bonds once we have the money? Most of our clients don't because they already have the package with us, so we buy it for them. Um, if you want to try and engage, let me think. If you want to try and engage by yourself and you're not relocating here, that would mean that you don't have the qualifying documentation to engage by yourself. So if that's the case and you want to try and do it on your own or whatever the case may be, then you need to contact a Kenyan bank. So you need, and you got to contact like their investment side. So you're gonna contact like FIDA Investment Bank or NCBA Investment, the investment side of NCBA Bank or whatever, because then you're gonna have to have like a broker do it for you. So you're gonna have to get like a brokerage account with the bank and then do that, and then there's gonna be fees to that. So the money you make is going to be reduced, but you can do that. So yeah, either go through the immigration process and then you'll get your paperwork and then you'll be able to go to the central bank and open a central bank account. There's two different central bank accounts. There's a CSD account, which is for bonds, and there's a CDS account, which is for stocks. So there's two different types of central bank accounts. Excuse me. If you open a central bank account and you don't utilize it in 12 months, they will shut it down. So it's not, you can't do business with this like out of a central bank account. So you can't like write checks or anything like that out of it. And if you're not buying securities, whether it's sovereign debt, which is bonds, or if it's public securities, which is stocks, or stock market, stuff, could be stocks, it could be derivatives, it could be options, it could be, all of those things. But, those are the two accounts that operate in those ways. So CSD is only for bonds, CDS is for stocks, derivatives, options, all those other things. Why? Oh, because you don't have a tax ID number, right? So it's like somebody trying to set up a brokerage account in the United States. What's your social security number? Oh, I don't have one. Right. Well, now you have to go get a tax ID number because you don't have a social security number, and there's a mechanism for that. But that's not necessarily the way that other countries work. Oh, my welder is starting. We're building a rail for the functional roof. You see him looking at me. I'm not going to tell him to stop. Let him do his job. It's not noisy enough that you guys can't hear me. No, that's crazy. Now, if somebody wants to try to do it on their own, I ain't got a problem with that. I'll tell them. If they catch me in a Q&A, I'll tell them. Is it? I don't know. Maybe it is. Are people like that? Will people not give you information unless you pay them? I mean, I won't solve your problems for free. Like, I won't give you specific information about your specific problems outside of a consultation. Now you're trying to get me to work for free. But I mean, general information. Is it? Is it? Is it? Is anybody else having a stuttering thing, or is it only the Facebook Live? I think it's only your live. And then you said that, and I saw a little thing come up on the bottom saying slow connection. Each live has their own connection. Yes, yes. They're not all like on one Wi-Fi or anything like that. I'm not really sure why. It's just oh, okay, I guess. Yeah, so the YouTube is on 5G. This is supposed to be on 5G as well, but I just checked and it says 4G. So I guess maybe there is a thing. And then TikTok, you're on Wi-Fi. Yeah, it just popped up slow connection again. Sorry, guys. And you guys are like asking the most questions right now, which is rare. That never happens. How hard was it to drive on the other side of the street? Oh, not many people have asked me that. It's not hard at all. Because the steering wheel is on the other side of the car, it makes like sense to your brain. So you pick it up really, really quickly. The hardest part are the circles, right? So when you're driving around the circle, like how you enter the circle and how you get out of the circle, if you're used to driving in the United States, you may like enter before you should, or like turn like from the wrong side because so that's the most difficult part. And with the circles, it's a lane thing, so you don't get in trouble for being in the wrong lane in the U.S. For the most part with the circles, but here it actually makes sense. Like if you got a circle, you're entering from one side of the circle. There's a way to get out here. You can go straight, from your perspective, and then there's the last turn, right, or the third turn. So if you're taking that first turn, you should be in the furthest outside lane of the circle, right? If you're going straight, you should be in the next lane over, where you pass the people who are making that turn and then you get out. If you're taking, the far one, then you should be in the lane closest to the circle and let everybody else get out, and then you get out in that last turn. So it makes like logical sense, but it's not something that like cops pull us over for. None here. Okay, cool. It's not something that like cops pull us over for in the United States, but a cop will check you if you turn out of the wrong lane in the circles. So that has been like the most difficult part, is to get the circles down, and then get like the turns down, like how you're going to turn, right and left and all of that stuff, out of the lanes. And that's only if there's multiple options. So like if you're coming up to a place where you can turn right and you can turn left, but then there's opposing traffic. And so there's like one of those slopes and a straight, and then there's a straight and a slope on the other side. The slope will throw you on the other side initially. So just do most of your driving like during the day at first, and like follow the other cars. And then within a week or two, it clicks and then you're good. I was actually concerned. I had to go back to the U.S. because my father was sick. He's passed now, but I was actually concerned when I got back to the U.S. about driving that way again. But it's just quick. Like once you have it, you know. So I didn't have any problems driving in the U.S. And then when I came back, I didn't have any problems driving here because that change in the steering wheel does something. Like it flips a switch in your brain where it's like, okay, the steering wheel's over here, so everything's over there, and it just works. But good question, yeah. You homeschool is homeschool. Yes, yes, it is. However, I will say this: 100% of our clients who homeschool, and when we go through all this, like, due diligence to get the homeschool information for them, 100% of them enroll their children in school within a year. 100%. So whatever it is, that's the real motivation as to why you homeschool, which obviously has something to do with what's happening in the public schools and maybe even the private schools, or maybe it's school shootings. I don't know, but whatever that motivation is seems to disappear when people get here and see what the schools here are actually like. So you know. Thanks. Buying the package through you must be ready to relocate within a certain time frame, or is the relocation not required? You said I will have no access to funds. I'm sorry, I got confused. Wait, now I'm confused. Thanks. Buying the package through you, I must be ready to relocate within a certain time frame. Or is the relocation not required? Oh, okay. I see what you're saying now, I think. So we have a bunch of different packages. The special is what most people are talking about right now because it's time sensitive. So the special will be done in February, right? And that the special includes the bond laddering so that you get those checks in the mail. It includes land here at the beach. It includes a two-bedroom house here at the beach built, from the ground up. What else does it include? It can include a car if you upgrade to that. But the standard package includes your immigration as well and all that, right? So for folks that are trying to immigrate and they're also trying to figure out like how they're going to make money when they immigrate and da 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 da, this is the perfect package for them. Um, but we do other things, right? So like we do trust funds, we do generational wealth trusts, we do all kinds of other stuff. And all of those people benefit from the bond laddering. So people will set up like a generational wealth trust, buy the bond laddering, and let the bond laddering fund the trust. So now the trust is getting monthly payments every month for the next 10 to 20 years, right? That's outstanding for generational wealth. There are some people who they're relocating slowly, like that we have people who are taking the next 7 years to relocate because they're going to retire from their job in 7 years, right? But they have their permits and everything going now, so that time, that clock is still ticking for them to be eligible for dual citizenship later, right? So for those folks, they can still invest in bond laddering and they still have that money flowing through, and they can actually have that money come back to them in the United States. So it works out to about $400 a month. So they get an additional $400 a month, like flowing back to them in the U.S. even from the bond ladders, or they go ahead and let that money compound again in a trust that's here. And when they're ready to come over here, the trust can actually take care of everything. So the trust buys them a ticket to come over. The trust takes care of any like last visa that they have to pay to get over here. If they're shipping a container of their household, stuff, they've been getting paid from the bonds for 7 years. So in that trust is enough money to even pay for the shipping container to get their stuff over here and all of that. So like it's a matter of planning, right? So whatever it is that you're focused on would dictate whether or not that package resonates with you. But there's a way to plan out whatever it is that you're trying to do. So the people who plan, the best always do the best. They always have the greatest outcomes, because if you plan well enough, then by the time you execute, everything is taken care of, right? So there's like no stress in your relocation whatsoever, or there's no stress in your family generational wealth planning whatsoever, because you put enough planning in, right? But a lot of our stuff, especially since the last election, a lot of folks are like, I want to leave now. So a lot of these packages are for those folks to be able to do that effectively and still have no stress, even though they don't have 7 years of planning, under their belt on that relocation. So that's essentially how we do things. So yeah, I mean, there are gonna be people who invest in the bonds who aren't coming over here, or aren't coming here anytime soon, but they're not going to have the same result, right? There are people who are investing in the bonds like little by, like what they say, kidogo here in Kenya. They're doing it like little by little, and so the amount they're buying doesn't protect them from amortization, right? So when the bonds amortize, they pay you back your principal little by little if you're above a certain amount, right, in the bond. So we always make sure we hit that amount so that the amortization is little by little. If you're below that amount, right, like if you're buying the minimum amount of bond that you can, which is about $380, then when you get to that amortization schedule, they just give you your money back, right? So you still made the ROI that you were make, but if it's a 20-year bond and you got all your money back at year 7, right, then you still made your ROI percentage, excuse me, but you're no longer participating in the bond for the rest of the 20 years, right? If you have over a certain amount of money in, then they only give you like half the money back at the first amortization schedule. And then at the second amortization schedule, you might get half of the half that's still in back. And then at the last, amortization schedule, you would get all of it back. So that's just a quirk on how bonds work. So if we do it through you, it's designed for us to either have an investment that compounds over years, or to be able to live off the investment for it. That's exactly it. Yep. If you do it through us, we measure everything so that you're either compounding for 10 years, or you can live without working and like focus on your kids. Like we have a lot of people who have like disabled children. So when they take this opportunity, they're actually able to sit at home with their children and not work. They're also able to hire a specialist to come help them with their child 24/7, live-in specialist who lives with them and assists them, with their, maybe they have a low functioning, child or, some sort of disability or something like that. Or even like we have people who their parents have Alzheimer's and they're finally able to sit at home and like actually engage with that parent and all of that stuff. So for some people, it's like a lifesaver, literally. For other people, it's just luxury. It's just, I don't have to work anymore. That's awesome. You know what I mean? But for some people, it changes their life. So yeah, that's exactly it. Understandable. Oh, awesome. Awesome. I never realized that a relocation could be that life changing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just got to pick the right country. Not every country is giving like crazy, 14% ROI bond rates. You know what I mean? So there's that. Oh, wow. Okay. That's bullshit. Bond rates are like 17 or like 7%. I think you wrote 17, which would not make it bullshit. But I think you met, yeah, yeah, 6 to 7%. Okay. All right. So let's see. Let's see what the government perspective says. There you go. So you go tell the government that they're full of shit. Good luck with that. There it is. From the government of Kenya. Bond rate 14.188% for 21 years, guaranteed by the government. Smaller bond rate 12.873% for 13.2 years. I'll accept your apology at any point in time. My daddy always said you don't argue with fools, or else people from afar can't tell who's who. I ain't finna waste my time on here and be lying to y'all, that's for sure. So that's the way it works, but this is not sustainable. The one thing that, the rude guy did have correct is that eventually these bond rates will probably go down to 7%. If you try to buy bonds like this in the United States right now, you're looking at between 4 and 7%. That's why you can't do it at home. That's why you can't do it in the U.S. So yeah, these bond rates are incredible. The S&P 500 is 10%. So to get 14%, on a bond over here, guaranteed money from the Kenyan government at, um, you know, 1.5% or 1.5 times the rate of the S&P 500, right? If it's doing 10% and you're doing almost 15, right? Um, that's amazing. Last February, we had 18.46%. Go look it up. It was tax exempt. It's called an infrastructure bond. Infrastructure bonds are tax exempt. This is not an infrastructure bond. This is a fixed deposit bond. Infrastructure bonds are tax exempt. February 2024, tax exempt, 18.46%. Who bought that bond, they get 98,000 shillings a month on the 2 months where that bond pays out. 98,000 a month, right? Like I said, my monthly budget for all the people I pay is like 80,000. Most people are taken care of with the 50,000. In the month when that bond, the 2 months that that bond pays out, they get 98,000 uh, on those months. So it's crazy, right? Those months carry like the light months because there was a couple bonds that were like 11% where they're getting like 54 after the tax, right? Because like as you can see here, there's a 10% withholding tax, right? So the 10% withholding tax is taken out of the payment. You don't pay that into the tax cycle. But yeah, that's it. These are the kind of like I'm actually happy that homeboy showed up with this nonsense, because those are the kind of people that will mess you up. Notice that he didn't apologize once the proof was put up, and I'm sure he went and googled it and he saw the rates, and now he's gone, right? So don't let the fools block your blessings. And there's going to be a lot of them that don't do any due diligence and just run their mouth, and they're completely and utterly incorrect. And they'll still be talking mess while you're living your best life, not having to work, taking care of your loved ones that actually need your help and need you there, taking care of them, on a daily basis. So, up to you. Yeah, there's actually a buyback auction right now, or like a top-up auction, some people call it. There's sometimes auctions, and they tend to pop up when a bond is maturing. And what they'll do is they'll offer you a really good rate on reinvesting, so that they don't have to pay you back your principal. Those are actually awesome, because like your risk is, while you have this great situation going on, you need to be investing in other things. Like most of, like in this package, you automatically have a house, right? So you and that house is paid off, so you have full equity in that house. You can go get a HELOC the day you move in, right? You own it completely, right? So you automatically have a house, and you have these bonds going. But over time, like, you want to get other stuff, like you want to get Airbnbs, or you want to invest in stocks, or you're like, you want to keep it going where you keep more and more and more passive income. Excuse me, right? And so by the time the bond is done and those checks stop coming from the government, what they'll do sometimes, depending on like which bond it is and how many people are invested, and they want that, to keep that money inside, they'll pop up with like a special auction, because they know, like, hey, next month this bond is done and we're kicking everybody out their money. So what we'll do is we'll say, hey, listen, if you bid on this top up auction, then what'll end up happening is, instead of us paying you out that money, we'll hold that money and roll it over into this new bond at like the same interest rate, or maybe 1 point lower, or something like that. And so that's typically cool, because at that point, maybe the interest rate is going to be like 7%. So if you got a 14%, like what I just showed you, and then they come with a top up, auction, and they say, okay, cool, we'll give you 13. Right? So if you take your money back and then you re-engage with the bond market, you're going to engage at 7%. But if you take this top-up auction, you'll get 13 instead, and it'll be closer to the 14 that you used to have. Right? So those things pop up, but you can't bank on them. There's no guarantee that they're going to pop up. So you get what you can get while the rates are high. You get your ROI on those rates. You live off of that stuff, or you use it to compound, or whatever it is your plan is. But while you're doing that, you make sure that you start diversifying. Right? One of the biggest lies is that people will be like, oh, rich people, they have, 6 income streams, 5 income streams, 7 income streams, depending on who you're listening to. They all got rich on one income stream. Every last one of them. Once they got rich, which rich is your passive income is greater than your monthly burn rate. Right? So your monthly passive income is greater than your monthly burn rate. That's rich. Okay, wealth is a different thing. Rich is, you have more passive, you have more income coming in that you don't have to work for. Bond dividends, which are called coupon payments. So you got this bond money coming in that you don't have to work for. That's passive income. So if your passive income exceeds your burn rate, you are rich. Right? That's how it works, right? So once that happens, that's where diversification comes in. That's where they start getting their 7 streams, because they've now gotten to a place where the passive income exceeds the monthly burn rate. All right? He can come say hi. Hi, Marcel. Did you sleep well? Hi. Hi. Are you okay? You had a good sleep? Yeah. Ooh, where are you going? To the pool?
Going to
Okay, Cheryl's gonna take you.
um,
All right, go have fun.
have fun. Have fun.
But yeah, so yeah, that's how it works. It's awesome. I mean, if I, man, if I wouldn't have figured out this, I wouldn't know him, guaranteed. I'd be working 12 hours a day, part-time jobs on the weekend, whatever. Like, yeah, I'd have no idea who he even is. I'm with him every day. I'm home with him every day. He interrupts business meetings and I tell him wait because I don't need your business. Right? My passive income is greater than my monthly expenses. So if you don't give me the business deal, I don't care. That's what happens. That's what happens when you put yourself in a position where your passive income exceeds your monthly burn rate, your monthly bills, right? What you spend per month. So when my 21-month-old, interrupts a business meeting, the business meeting waits. And they do. They sit there and they wait till I'm done with him. And then we get back to it because I don't need the deal. They need me to help them make money. I don't need the deal. Not anymore. Right? So it puts you in a pretty good position to enjoy life and live life to the fullest essentially. So I recommend it. But you guys, do whatever makes the most sense to you. But I definitely recommend putting yourself in a position where you don't have to work for the next 10 years. That's actually correct. A lot of people do not think about that. You're absolutely correct. That is our basic position. So you could double it. Absolutely. You could triple it. Absolutely. And you're also right that it wouldn't be a doubling of the actual price because all the legal fees and all of those fees that like the setup charges and all that, they don't get set up, again because you want to do a higher rate of investment, right? So you're right. The price doesn't double, but you could double, you could triple, you could do whatever you wanted to do. That's within your feasibility, right? It has to be within your feasibility. We had a family of 10 relocate. And so it's 10 humans, but they brought 5 dogs, 3 cats, two 40-foot containers, to move all their houses over here. We had to build them 4 or 5 houses. And then there were other things like a golf course and like not a golf course, I'm sorry, a tennis court. And they wanted a salon and a barber shop, facility on the estate and all of that. And it was like amazing for them because they were able to bond ladder number one, but they didn't do it at like our standard. They increased the number dramatically, and they were able to build out their entire family estate. And so they got a full family estate. There's what 7 or 8 buildings, but there's 5 houses. So there's 5 houses, and there's all these other buildings that they have, on the estate, and the pools and all of that stuff. They were able to build all of that out for like 1.8 million. So think about that for a minute. You got 5, and they're all 4-bedroom houses. One of them's a 6-bedroom house, right? So the main person has a huge house. So you got 5 houses. 4 of them are 4-bedroom, 2-story houses that are at least 5,000 square feet. And then there's a 6-bedroom house that's 10,000 square feet, right? And then you have a family pool. You have a tennis court. You have a hair salon, barber shop, building where that's happening. You have a kennel for the 5 dogs you brought. The cats live in their respective houses, right? So you got all of this going on. And it was like 1.8 million. And then you do the bond thing, and instead of doing the base with the 75,000, you're like, you know what? We're gonna do $500,000 instead of $75,000. So, the amount that they paid into the bonds and the amount of monthly, payments they're getting from the bonds is like through the roof, right? Now that's a family of 10. They pooled their resources. You know what I mean? There's 10 adults. They pooled their resources and made that possible for themselves, right? But obviously, that's not a standard situation that just any old body could do. But it just goes to show, even at that level, even coming up with that kind of money and doing that, they got 50-60 million dollars worth of value from an American perspective for a little over 2M, right? So it works out for everybody at every income level. It's just that it's various levels of deployment. It's complete speculation, right? Oh, the question is, how much longer do I think the bond market is going to be incredible here? It's complete speculation. So I always tell everybody, get your bond ladder ASAP, like immediately, because who knows, by July, and we might be down to 10%. You know what I mean? And now you're not getting the 14% returns anymore, and whatever. So I don't know. It's complete speculation as to how long it'll last. Have no clue. So definitely make a move. I am assuming, because we're approaching an election cycle, right? And 2027 will be an election year. I'm assuming that the current administration is going to try to maintain high, high bond rates, just to like run on it as a campaign situation. But when bonds go down, stocks go up. So that's just an assumption, right? Because they can turn around and be like, ooh, we increased the stock market instead of the bond market, right? So it's just an assumption. What if it goes up? That's great. Yeah, that's all. Because, like, all right, let's say you onboarded today, right? Let's say you onboarded today and you wanted to do a bond ladder. Number one, your paperwork isn't going to be done today just because you onboarded today, right? So your paperwork done until like end of January, maybe February. Okay, now you have the ability to even open the central bank account, right? So now we're buying your first bond maybe in February, right? So if it goes up, you're going to benefit from that because you're going to buy one of those bonds that goes up, if that's the case, right? If it goes down, right, then our target is we're going to go ahead and get in there and grab it before it goes down below 10%. Because remember, all of our targets are at 10%, which is way lower than what it's at now anyway, right? So if it goes down, you're still above target until it hits 10%. Now we're at target, so you're still getting the benefit that we discussed. You know what I mean? By the time it goes all the way down to even 10%. So we have that wiggle room, obviously, in the way that we, present the information, and that's just being, responsible for the presentation of the information. So if it goes up, that's great. You'll benefit from it going up because your account wouldn't be ready until it went up, right? If it goes down, it shouldn't go down so fast that you lose the benefit, right? Which is why we're only even offering the special until February, so that we can be reasonably, certain that it won't go down so far that it dips under 10%, right? So that's where we're at right now. So by the time 2026 is done, we'll kind of know. And then in 2027, it'll either be like, you know what I mean? Yeah, you can still do it, but we don't know if it'll take care of you the way it used to, or we'll know like, all right, cool, we got one more year, you know what I mean? But I have a sneaking suspicion that no matter what, after the next president is elected, be it the same president we have now or not, it'll start stabilizing. And it depends on how many development projects come up. When a development project hits, bond rates typically go up because there's increased desire for funds, right? So the way bonds work in a nutshell, just so people kind of understand what a bond even is, a government bond anyway, is the government turns you into the bank. So the government says, hey, we need a loan. We're not going to the bank for the loan, we're going to the people for the loan. And we're going to give you an interest rate of 14% on that loan. And we're going to pay the loan back in 20 years, right? Over the course of 20 years, right? That's literally what it is. So you become the bank, you give your cash to the government, they pay you back. It's called sovereign debt. So they pay you back, and as long as the government exists, they pay you back, right? Typically, the default on a sovereign debt, the sovereign has to go away, right? So if the government disappears, getting a bond payment is the least of your concerns, right? So that's why it's considered the safest of all investments, right? Still an investment, there's still risk. The default could happen, but that's why it's considered the safest of investments. The safer an investment, normally the lower the ROI, right? So that's why the Yahoo who came on here earlier talking about 4%. Yeah, if you're in America, you're getting an American bond, right? Because it's a super safe investment. But there's no strong requirement for liquidity by the U.S. to do like infrastructure projects. There probably should be, but there isn't, right? So they're not chasing cash to do development projects and infrastructure projects where they're going to the American people and asking for loans, right? So that's what a bond is. A bond is whoever is issuing the bond is asking for a loan, typically from the public. There are corporate bonds, so sometimes it's a corporation asking for a loan. That's way riskier. But sovereign debt is a government guaranteeing you an interest rate for a loan that it needs to do whatever it is that it wants to do, right? So the more projects, like if they were going to build a new international airport, there's going to be a bond, right? They need a loan to do that unless they completely privatize it, right? So when the government is doing infrastructure and development on that level, that's where you get these awesome bond rates because there's a demand for cash essentially. So that's what a bond is. It turns you into the bank. Well, I'm happy that helped you understand it. Again, that is quite a pedestrian overview, but bonds are not designed to be complicated though. They're not derivatives. They're not options. They're not puts and calls. You know what I mean? They're not designed to be something that the average person couldn't wrap their head around because bonds get money from the average person. So they're designed to be pretty easy to understand. I think you answered my question. Well, that's good. I'm happy if I can answer it before you ask it. That means I'm heading in the right direction. If there was a giant so American infrastructure is essentially crumbling. If there was a giant infrastructure project, you might actually get these percentages in America. The issue becomes though, JP Morgan would just buy up all the bonds. You know what I mean? Like that's what would end up happening in the United States. Like you have these big equity groups that are on the inside, like they have insider information. So then it would become a public partnership announcement, that whatever group is going to finance the infrastructure of the whatever, through sovereign debt. And then you don't actually get a chance to benefit from it. But the people who are in, their top tier VIP investor group all benefit from it because now it becomes something that's on the books of their firm, right? So like now it's like Berkshire Hathaway or JP Morgan, they have this, this sovereign fund that's paying into them, and they're managing the debt instead of it like opening out into the people. So if it becomes amazing like that in the US, there's that chance that those things would happen versus it really opening it up to the people. So, it is what it is. Yet people would act like it's more corrupt here than it is there, just because they don't know how things work. Just a matter of professional skill, right? Um, not everybody even knows how to implement something like this. And like I said, really the only other, you know, um, diaspora or Black American owned relocation service that's legitimate in Kenya, that we can, vouch for their legitimacy anyway, is Traverse Culture. So, other than Traverse Culture, we can't vouch for anyone else's legitimacy. So that's why you're not seeing. And Traverse Culture doesn't do this particular thing. They don't have the team to do it, so they come through us for it. So that's all. It's just a matter of how long you've been in business and what kind of specialists you have and all that. So we're uniquely positioned for this because of the law firm that we own. But it definitely makes for a unique offering. The fact that we can relocate people and then retire them and they don't have to work again is definitely a unique unique position to be in. It's not a supply chain; it's a vertical integration chain. So within the vertical integration chain, we have our own law firm, which is at the base, the foundation of the vertical integration. Above that, we have an architectural firm that designs houses and structures, whether it's corporate structures or residential structures. And then above that, we have our own general contractor who then does the actual construction. Um, but for the bond laddering, that obviously leans on our legal team and our estate planning team. Why not a finance team? Oh, because it's the estate planning team because it's managed by a trust fund. It's managed by a trust fund so that no one can take it from you, right? So if you get in a car accident and you own the bonds, which is something that happens when people are like, "Oh, I'm just going to go get the bonds myself," right? If you get into a car accident and they sue you and the judge says, "Yeah, you're liable," and you're like, "Well, I ain't got any money," and they're like, "But you own these bonds, don't you? They pay out every month." So now you're going to have to transfer ownership of these bonds to whoever won the lawsuit against you to satisfy the court judgment, right? But if that were to happen to you and you were one of our clients, you wouldn't own anything. There would be a trust fund that kicks that money out to you as a beneficiary of the trust, and you wouldn't have the ability to request for that trust fund to transfer any of its assets to anyone else because you're not the trustee, you're just the beneficiary, right? And so in that case, you're protected. No matter what happens to you, you're protected. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, a lot of people will do things amateurly. A lot of people will try to, oh, well, I can do that, whatever. But then they're unprotected, and then yeah. Oh, sorry. What about that tech city that they are building? I don't know which one. Are you talking about the Silicon Savannah? They are building a Silicon Savannah, but I know there are a couple other like city projects. I don't know if Silicon Savannah is considered. It's supposed to be the what do they call it in the United States? It's supposed to be the Silicon Valley of like Africa, if that's what you're talking about, Henrock. I'm sorry, and if you were talking about, you think I answered the question that way? I didn't even see that question. But there is like they're trying to do they're trying to do their own like Silicon Valley thing. This is definitely the country for it. Kenya even amongst like Western countries, I feel like Kenya has way more confidence in technology than your average country does, because they invented M-Pesa. So there are a lot of Kenyans that their entire life savings is on their cell phone, and they're cool with it. And there's never been an issue like no one's ever, to the best of my knowledge, no one's ever, like hacked M-Pesa, because the low tech nature of the invention actually makes it more secure. So it's hardware based, analog, not digital. They use USSD codes to get it, done. Now you can get an app, right? But the app is still doing all the analog stuff in the background, right? So it's really, really difficult, to hack it, right? And so they just have all of their information on M-Pesa, which translates into mobile money. And they also, what do you call it? They royalty it out. So in other countries in like the West, it is called mobile money. Like if you're in Ghana or something, it's straight up called mobile money, but it doesn't work the same. They don't have the full capabilities like they do here in Kenya. So Kenyans are like really trustworthy over technology, because technology has never, harmed them. Whereas, like, if you're looking at like a Nigerian, like a couple years ago, they couldn't even get their money out the ATM, during the elections, if you all remember that. So they had all their money in the bank, and they weren't allowed to withdraw their own money, right? Whereas Kenyans, they got all their money on their phone, and they've never had a problem where they couldn't withdraw it or couldn't utilize it or couldn't whatever. And then their phone, like, there's even an option to turn the money that's into their phone into like a Visa card, so that they can like shop in Amazon if they want, or they go on vacation, and they have like a tap card that's in their phone, because you can do M-Pesa Global Pay and get like a Visa card number attached to your mobile money. So it's like, it's wild, right? The technology is amazing. It actually solves the bank desert issues in the hood in America, because people in the hood in America got to go to the bodega on the corner to cash their check, and the guy at the bodega charged them 30% of their paycheck every week to cash their check, and they got no option, right? Because there's no banks in the hood. If they had M-Pesa, it would immediately solve that problem. Your bank is your phone, right? And it works on like non-smartphones. You don't need the app. You can use the USSD code, which is like your star 123 pound type of situation, right? So it works on the so-called Obama phones, right? So it's a perfect solution actually. But because of that, all of that tech stuff does really, really well here. So if you're an entrepreneur, if that's what you're about, that's what you're into, this is definitely the right location for you. And so yes, they're doing that Silicon Savannah, but I think it's kind of like Silicon Valley in the sense of like Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is the headquarters of all those startups. It's not really a place where people live. There's a place outside, where everybody who those startups lives, right? And I'm sure the same thing will happen, but it's not really like a city as far as like, oh, come buy a house here. It's more like, hey, come do a tech startup here. And then you're going to be around all the other tech startups, in East Africa. And so you guys should be able to, have the same kind of synergy as you see in Silicon Valley, where Oracle just walks down the street, to Adobe and does a deal because they're both in the same area, and their executives are going to the same restaurants and getting to know each other, and so on and so forth. So I think that's more of the idea with Silicon Savannah. I think the JBE though is going to be pretty instrumental in bringing in new investment into all of those things. So I think you're going to see in 2026 a whole heap of American investment into a lot of those things, because JBE is going to be doing an actual U.S. tour, bringing investment in, and that U.S. tour is in partnership with the government. So it's not just going to be like Traverse Culture doing her thing with the relocations and all that, but like Kenvest will be there, and the Kenyan immigration might be there as well, and like government officials who can assist with with the overall process should be at that tour. And so, yeah, so it should be a pretty big deal. Early positioning. I have clients now that are already positioning for the kind of fallout that's going to come out of the JBE tours. So housing, making sure that the creature comforts are there from home and all of that stuff. There are Americans that are already here that are investing in kind of creature comfort infrastructure to make sure that the ones who come kind of have access to whatever it is that they want. Yeah, positioning. I mean, positioning matters. If you can get positioned in advance, whew. All right. Any other questions about Kenya? Any other questions for me? Any other questions about what we do? We have been here for 2 hours and 46 minutes. So, if there are any other questions, go ahead and ask them now. If there are no more questions, then I will go head over to the pool and see what my son is doing. All right. If you're writing something, just go ahead and send it and you can finish it up. I'll wait for you to finish it up. If you're about to ask a question, just put a 1 in the chat and I will wait for you. If not, seems like we're good. Is there any business I can run over there from Ontario? I suppose so. I mean, like technically, we run our business from the United States, but then all of the execution is done by our subsidiaries, like our Kenyan vendors, right? So you would have to have either a Kenyan team on the ground, like we do, that's actually doing all the stuff, and and paying the taxes and all of that stuff, or you would still have to get an investor permit, right? Which we have a lot of people who do that. So, like, we just set up here. I guess I can actually show it to you because this is TikTok. It's one of the good things about TikTok. Let's see here. We just built an Airbnb duplex. Let's see, 6-bedroom. Where is it? You're gonna get an old picture of it before it was finished, but let's see here. What do we got here? Oh, there it is. All right. Is that it? No, that's not it. That's a different house that we built, but that's not a business. Let me go ahead and show you a business. Okay. There really has to be a better way of like looking for pictures than this. TikTok, I need you to do an update. Let's see here. Okay. Okay. All right, there it is. All right, so I guess I'm in the way. But as you can see, there is an Airbnb here. It is 6 bedroom, 6.5 bathroom. There's a pool over here that takes up an entire 50 by 100 plot. The Airbnb is also on a 50 by 100 plot, so there's two plots right next to each other. This business owner does have her investor permit, obviously, or else she can't legally do business here. But she doesn't live here, and she barely comes here. So she is in Tennessee, and she runs her business from Tennessee, like you were talking about doing it from Ontario, here. And so I don't for Canada, I don't know, but there are methods by which the business internationally can pay your U.S. business, and then it's tax exempt, right? So there are ways to do that in the U.S. I don't know how you do it in Canada, but yeah, so that's what she does. So yeah, I mean, people do it all the time. How can I connect with you for a consult? All of these lives are on business. They're on business accounts, so there should be a link either to the website or for a consult directly on that account, if not an email. So just utilize whatever link is available through the platform you're watching on. Either email us and we'll send you the information to set up a consultation, or just set up the consultation through the link that's there. Yeah, for sure. Initial consultations are typically always with me. Legal consultations are typically with me and one of our legal heads, like legal department heads. So it depends on, like, there's going to be a little space that says, tell us more about why you want the consultation. So depending on what you say in there will determine which lawyer is on a legal consult. So if it's something that you need a lawyer for, and you want the lawyer in the meeting, you do the legal consult, and then make sure you fill out the, hey, what is this consultation about section, and tell us like some kind of brief synopsis of what's going on, and that way we can have that lawyer on that consultation with us. How far away is the Airbnb from the? You can walk to the beach in 20 minutes. You can drive there in 5. So relatively close. And actually, in that same neighborhood where these Black Americans already have set up, that's the neighborhood that's part of the package that ends in February. So if you get involved in that package, your 1,600 square foot house is built in this neighborhood. Yeah, you can change it, but that's not the package. So then it unravels the package, and then we got to get pricing for you wherever you want to put your house at. But yeah, you can build a house anywhere you want. Yeah, we can find you the land and all that stuff and do the deal anywhere. It's just gonna, depending on what you choose, it's just gonna change the price. Yep. Yeah, no problem. All right. Any other questions? Any other questions before I get up out of here? It has been 2 hours, 53 minutes, and 49 seconds. Any other questions? All right. Looks like we are good. I'll give it a couple more seconds in case you're typing something right now. If you are, just hit enter, and then I'll give you time to finish, your thought if it doesn't make sense. And other than that, thank you for being here. Other than that, we will take off. You're most welcome. You asked a lot of questions. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, looks like we are good. Have a great time. I am going to head over to the pool and see what it is my son is doing. Imagine that. Wakes up, first thing he does is run to the pool. All right, talk to you guys later. Thanks for hanging out with me. And I will be here at the same time tomorrow.